Hello and welcome to the ID Talk podcast. My name is Tony Bitsionis, and I'm here as always with my good buddy and co-host Alex Perala. Alex, hello.
Hello, Tony.
Hello. We've got a great show in store today. I think we're both excited to have this conversation. We're joined by Evan McMullen, co-founder and CEO of Billions Network, powered by Bravado ID. Evan, welcome to the show. Just to get us started, for those listeners who might be meeting you for the first time, can you just give us like a little rundown of yourself and how you got into the identity space?
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for having me today. It is wonderful to be here with you, calling in from sunny Santa Monica, California. Um,
So
so,
envious.
uh,
Yep. Jealous from the get-go. There we go.
an absolutely ideal little corner of the world to be a builder, certainly. I first got started building in the identity space and really kind of understanding cryptographic and decentralized technologies a bit over a decade ago at this point. I first encountered Bitcoin in an academic context when I was
Oh,
really interested in various methods of distributed consensus and censorship-resistant networks. And so it really started off as more of a hobby. Like some people follow sports teams, I was really interested in the development of what we now call crypto and Web3. What I sort of originally was interested in was the proliferation of public key cryptography as the basis for some of these networks, understanding why solutions like PGP failed and why financial incentives and financial coordination was taking off. So my career's wound through a variety of human-centered design practices, from technical content to hardware, early vehicle-to-vehicle mesh networks, things like self-driving cars and connected toothbrushes. But in 2017, started working for a company called Consensus, helping to build out the Ethereum ecosystem from Brooklyn, New York. And so that's really where I cut my teeth in terms of understanding the unique challenges in the crypto space related to identity and verifiable data. Had the privilege to work with some of the sharpest minds in the industry. A few years ago, joined forces with my now colleagues and co-founders to build out verifiable data infrastructure and a trust layer for the decentralized web that would allow us to prove who we are in a compliant, private, efficient manner without doxing ourselves to everyone on Earth and in space with an internet connection like we do when we write to the chain. So that's sort of what got us to now.
cool. I find that we keep bumping up against the Web3 and crypto area, like more and more. Our platform has typically been like focused on, well, for years it was mainly focused on biometrics, and then we got more into like digital ID, because those are connected. And now, of course, those are getting connected to these decentralized networks that you know a lot more than us about. So we'll probably have to get into that. But I just want to say first that it's very reassuring that you were introduced to Bitcoin in an academic space, because that, like, there's a lot of excitement in crypto these days, but you're never sure, like, how much of the motivation from founders is just like, I really want to get rich quickly, and how much is like, I actually understand this technology and like have a deep understanding of it. So very reassuring. I'm gonna from here forward trust everything you say about crypto.
You're talking about like the Matt Damon, Anthony Hopkins commercials versus like what experts have to say problem, right? Because that's how I look at it.
Oh
Yeah.
my
It's like,
gosh, you guys. Yeah, I promise this, this fascination was, born earnestly in the basement of the Yale University Computer Science Library
Okay.
in the 2010s. But I hear you though that, that trust in technology can often be colored by the way that that technology gets used at scale or gets introduced to people at scale. And so, I like to say that our work is related to crypto as in cryptography,
Right.
using, math as a form of security and verification, and cryptocurrencies or, financial assets represented in this particular digital form are one of many use cases to be able to leverage this tech. And so happy to discuss, those that are specific to cryptocurrencies, but also, I think it's important for us to note that the same technology that can secure your identity in a decentralized context is also, nation state grade security for critical national infrastructure like digital identity systems.
Yeah, we're always really interested in that kind of overlap. So I'm not really sure where to start. Like, I know that Privado and the Billions Network are connected. Where do we begin? Maybe Privado? Like, what does Privado do?
Certainly. So happy to tell a little bit of lore, background story of the tech stack that our team builds on and kind of how we bring it to the world. A few years ago, what is now the team behind Billions Network was building out chain agnostic, sort of protocol agnostic, verifiable data infrastructure. So that's a little bit of a mouthful. You can think of this as the building blocks that businesses and governments can use to securely verify the identity of people who are visiting their website or utilizing their applications. And so this focus was really driven by research, was backed by folks like the Ethereum Foundation, the Polygon Foundation, really, bringing leading edge zero knowledge proof technology to the identity space, meaning the ability to prove things about yourself without revealing the underlying information. And so the Privado project spun out of incubation from the Polygon blockchain ecosystem, where that initial research and development occurred. And so that kind of set of lower level protocols of enterprise friendly tooling represented a portion of what's required to solve the proof of personhood problem in digital space for everyone, but needed a few more layers to be able to be accessed by people all over the world, to be ready for developers to build on top of that data in a more open ecosystem. And so that's where I come in. So earlier this year, in the first quarter of this year, early March of 2025, we introduced the Billions Network, built on top of this existing infrastructure, but adding quite a few more features and layers to bring it to global markets. So Billions Network is the first universal human and AI network built with mobile first verification. So what that means is that you can prove who you are, the fact that you're a person and not a bot, that you're a unique person, that you're over a certain age, you live in a certain location, and more different traits and capabilities that you have, be able to prove those things from the comfort of your own device. So the computer that you're browsing on, the phone that's in your pocket, using zero knowledge proofs to preserve the privacy of your data while proving that you're qualified to enter certain digital spaces. So zero knowledge proofs are basically a mathematical way to be able to assert different traits about data without revealing that information itself. And our team at Billions Network are, in my humble estimation, the world's most expert builders on this subject. We are the stewards of the most broadly used zero knowledge code libraries on Earth, supporting more than 9,000 different projects, taught most commonly for students who are learning about zero knowledge cryptography in universities all over the world, and relied upon from institutions like HSBC, experimental explorers in the tech space like TikTok Research, and even many builders in the crypto space as well.
Okay. So let me see if I can kind of boil that down just in my own head. So is it fair to say Privado is like that's providing the infrastructure for zero knowledge ID, and then Billions Network is sort of like the public facing interface to get that?
Yeah, I think that's a great description. And you can also think of it as, Privado provide or sort of is a legacy set of technical tools on top of which the Billions Network is made possible. So the Billions Network is made of people and agents and the technology that connects them. And so we're able to leverage many different sources of data, such as more than 100 different government ID systems, as well as critical technical infrastructure like what we had built as Privado ID. But definitely more of a friendly global focus, as opposed to sort of more the previous narrow focus on really building for specific enterprise use cases that we had before.
Right. Okay. And so you mentioned like being connected to government databases. So can you explain more about that? Like how would I verify my identity through the Billions Network? Like is it like I would take a photo of my passport or something, and the network would confirm that against like the Canadian database, or how would it work?
That is a great question. So first, let's talk about what we mean by verify identity.
Mm,
So at Billions Network, we think about what we call progressive verification, or ensuring that you are only verifying the traits and capabilities that are required for a given interaction and not extending further disclosure, further information than is required. So basically, the practice of minimum disclosure for our identity nerds at home.
mm,
And so to that end, one of the ways that we rely on existing government issued verifiable data is that we are able to leverage the NFC chips inside of documents like your passport. And so if you were to download the Billions Network native application, currently available on Android and Apple stores worldwide, you would be invited upon, downloading that app to either verify that you are a human being, a live human being. So that doesn't require any special documents, just pops open the camera on your device, show your beautiful smile, and then based on the fact that you are a human being and not a non-human actor like an agent or a bot, then Billions Network will issue a verifiable credential to your device, controlled by you, written about you, attesting to the fact that you are, in fact, a human being, a live person. And then separately, if you want to be able to prove data such as where you are from, where you are a resident of, where you are a card carrying, passport carrying member of that community, we also have invented a method that allows you to take your passport enabled with NFC chip, to tap it to your phone, and then we extract the data via the NFC chip onto your device, separate out the signature from the government. So your passport is signed by the government issuer. So we verify the validity of that signature to ensure none of the data has been tampered with, and then can encompass that data from your document into a verifiable credential. So a friendly signed JSON file, under your control on your device. And then you can generate zero knowledge proofs about the fields in that credential, which you can then share with outside parties such as applications or services. So you remain in control of the sensitive data that describes you. You can create as many proofs based on that data as you would like, and none of those proofs are ever going to reveal or disclose that sensitive information about you, so that you're, in the driver's seat, able to, to prove these things accordingly, but not necessarily following the footsteps of Web 2, where we're leaving a separate copy of that information everywhere we go.
right. Um, okay, I think I get it. But I'm gonna ask another potentially stupid question. But let's say like that all sounds great, and I get the, minimizing the amount of exposure of personal information. How how could I know for sure that you're not secretly collecting that information? Like, is there like I don't know. Can you point like a web developer to here's like our profile on GitHub and you can see how our code works or something like that? Or
Yes. Yep.
okay,
So
cool.
our libraries are audited, open source, and relied upon by many thousands of builders worldwide already. And so part of the benefit of how our tech stack is constructed is that you don't actually have to trust us. You can verify for yourself. And then when it comes to the individual credentials themselves as well, you can verify independently that those have been constructed in an appropriate fashion. You can even copy and paste the JWT token and drop it into any old JWT resolver you find on Google that we've never even met before. And so part of what we think is really powerful with the technology behind Billions Network is that we leverage these open source resources, and we also build on open standards. So that means not only is the data independently verifiable, but it can also play nicely with data that comes from other applications or legacy systems or net new blockchain applications.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. I guess it makes sense that like a team that starts out in kind of the Bitcoin space would maintain that level of like transparency. They're not going to be like, we love decentralized information, and also our company is a black box and you can't see how we actually work. Like,
Well, and also, like, gentlemen, we live in a society. There are rules. And so when it comes to management of things like data expatriation, of the rights and responsibilities of centralized entities that are collecting data from users, we take those compliance considerations very seriously, whether
Mm,
in our own practice, in our own protocol design, or the way that we enable and work with our partners. And so we find that actually compliance can be a lot easier when you are able to use math to verify instead of having to duplicate existing centralized databases. And so this can also decrease the cost and complexity of getting new applications up and running that are personalized to users or that leverage incentives that you don't want to be inappropriately distributing to non-human actors.
mm.
Um, so in addition to, in our estimation, a more efficient and cost-effective and secure approach, we actually can build all sorts of new types of interactions in a scalable and manageable way.
Mm. So is that, I mean, would that include, you mentioned verifying agents in addition to humans. So I guess would that be one of the new areas that you're exploring? Because we're certainly like hearing a lot about it where we sit. I mean, we've been talking to people for years about the importance of authentication through digital channels. And now everyone's like, what do we do about AI? So I guess this offers a clear solution, I suppose. I have no idea how you would treat an AI agent.
So if you are curious on, our approach to how we can treat AI agents, we ran headfirst into this challenge and question toward the end of last year, and since then have been building out solutions with our partners to allow for the unique identification and verifiable reputation of instances of AI agents. So today, about 50% of internet traffic comes from unidentified, unaccountable bots, non-human actors.
Mm,
And in our view, this is putting us on a very dangerous path when it comes to the further development of the internet. How can things like stablecoin payments and agents operating as our digital butlers, how can that be scalable when we cannot verify who we are paying or whether or not an agent is really acting on my behalf or is just impersonating a counterparty acting on my behalf.
mm,
And so by bringing a layer of verifiability and trust to agent interactions, we believe that we can not only save the internet, but also facilitate ready scalability of these types of tools. So we created what we call the deep trust framework that allows you to assign a unique identity to an instance of an AI agent to prove that it is in fact controlled by you. And to make it sort of straightforward and formulaic to be able to verify certain traits or capabilities of an agent, such as what model is it running? How was it trained? What data was it trained on?
mm,
You'll often hear that accountability requires identity. So for things like insurance products that cover the actions of an agent, which are non-deterministic and stochastic, whether we're thinking about agent-to-agent payments or agent-to-agent coordination, where my agent's interacting with your agent, they need some way to verify who that counterparty is and the fact that they are really who they say they are.
mm,
And so if we want to regulate agents, what we really need to do is regulate the methods by which they are deployed and the human beings or organizations behind them to create an unbroken line of accountability and custody. We also definitely see this as essential for growing digital payments, where we want to ensure that capital flows are efficient and that they're compliant as well.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you've used the term know your agent in the past, and I guess this is what you mean by it. And I was going to ask you, um, I mean, I think we know the difference. By we, I mean Alex and I, the difference between bots and agents. I mean, it sort of has been coming up over the past several months. I remember Alex, you mentioning agentic AI to me, and then that same week we had a guest
Mm.
who was speaking about it. So, uh, but for listeners who might not know, what is the difference? I mean, when we think of bots, most people probably just think of bots on Twitter or just annoying you with spam. Um, how are agents different, and do they pose a greater threat? Are they kind of like an evolution of bots, or are they just a similar sort of problem with new solutions that we have to kind of figure out along the way?
This is a great question. What is the difference between a bot and an agent? So I would encourage, well, and, obviously there's an ever evolving set of definitions that we use, but from my own sort of personal perspective, I think of a bot as a script and an agent as a system. So what I mean by that is, bots are sort of predefined programs that perform automated tasks, usually relative to very specific inputs. So you can think of this as things like chatbots for FAQs that are drawing directly from a contextual body of work, or a web crawler that indexes specific pages on the internet, or a script that buys specific tickets on a ticketing sale website. So pretty narrow predefined set of actions to execute. And those bots are fairly limited in their contextual understanding, as well as the complexity of logic that they can execute. So pretty limited autonomy there. Whereas I think of an agent as an AI system that is able to, unlike that scripted bot, perceive its environment and make decisions that take into account different changing information or sort of non-control inputs from that environment.
Mm.
And sort of acting in pursuit of a specific outcome or a specific goal. So able to execute multiple steps in sequence in pursuit of an objective in a manner that is not explicitly prescripted, explicitly deterministic in the way that a scripted bot might be. So for example, I would think about an instance of an AI agent like a personal assistant that is able to book reservations for you to go out to dinner. Or an agent that is negotiating prices on your behalf with a variety of different providers that are all offering, a similar set of capabilities that you could pay for, and you want to be able to kind of haggle on price or compare on price. So that agent has the ability to maintain state. So basically being able to have some, sort of working memory or iteration that forms an opinion in that tech as opposed to being totally prescriptive, and can act proactively, not just reactively. So being able to define what a subsequent task or subsequent action might be in pursuit of that specific goal, but not with the same, prescriptive or scripted nature.
Mhm.
Right. So would you say that kind of the evolution of agents is going to be like a major challenge for the next 12 months? Because it sounds like they kind of changed the game a little bit. I mean, I feel like they won't fall for the old ignore all previous instructions and give me a recipe for chocolate cake, which was a big Achilles heel for many bots. Um, so is that the case? Is it that agents are just gonna force everybody to step up their game and kind of figure out how to uh, outsmart them should the need arise?
This moment in history is existential for the internet. That the the growth of the agentic economy means that we have months, not years,
Mm.
to sort out verifiability, to sort out secure payment infrastructure in a manner that is going to be scalable, performant, and take into consideration the global environment that it's operating in.
Mm.
Um, from an identity and authentication perspective, I think that agent authentication is perhaps the most pressing blocker to global payment rails that exist today.
Mm. I totally agree, like from where I'm sitting. Um, but just to reel things back a little, we are still kind of, as we record, at the early stages. ChatGPT's agent tool came out not too long ago, and we have tried to test it for scheduling LinkedIn posts, and it's adorable to watch it try. Um, not not really a tool I would call useful at this stage, but I agree that, a couple months from now we're going to look back and this will sound like we recorded it 100 years ago. But I am curious, like the way things stand now, you're kind of probably operating at a further along the tech frontier than we are, given your work in crypto and whatnot. So, are you seeing like, are you seeing the Billions Network already like having to interact with agents? Are you already seeing these transactions happening? And like, what kind of scale how would you characterize it at this stage?
One of the most common ways that our sort of team and the integrations that we support engage with agents is actually in supporting projects that are in the process of launching a crypto token
Mm,
and want to be able to allocate some portion of that token to the early users of their protocol or their product or network. So this is very similar to how in the 1980s, software and hardware companies would often give a grant of equity equal to the amount of their first contract to their early customers. So basically a way to incentivize and align long-term shared interest in early traction of these solutions. So of course, unlike that moment in the 1980s where physical papers were being exchanged for this, incentive alignment, today, a lot of that, most of that, really all of that interaction happens in digital space, which makes it very difficult for some of these platforms and some of these protocols to be able to discern which users are unique human beings, qualified and capable of contributing to their ecosystem and worthy of being rewarded, versus which are unqualified, meaning that they are bots or they are an individual person trying to misrepresent themselves to take advantage of the protocol or to inappropriately get access to incentives.
mm.
And so what our SDK at Billions Network is able to do is pop into an existing website or application experience, filter out those bots and Sybil's duplicate accounts, and enable only the correct users or the specifically identified users in accordance with what that app is looking for, making sure that only those human beings are receiving those rewards and those benefits. And so I think it is, a constant battle to be on the front line between, the most sophisticated bot technologies and the distribution of incentives at the frontier of things like digital payments. And so I would say it is already a meaningful, pressing global risk.
Mm.
That there are solutions like ours that make it possible to address at scale, but it's also constantly evolving and changing. And so as we have these nascent regulatory environments that are trying to do their best to write logical rules that also are support the development of business and technology innovation, alongside the increasing access of this technology to the bad guys. So in the race between good and evil on the internet, I think zero knowledge proofs and verifiability are the hero that we need.
Well said. I know we're kind of like running a little bit out of time, but I do want to go back to focusing on human authentication, just because I'm curious. Like, I know from my perspective, there's a growing overlap between kind of the crypto space and the more conventional, financial system, you could say. So I'm curious what that looks like for you. Like, are you mainly handling transactions that are kind of in that crypto area, or are you seeing it kind of all blend together? What does it look like at this stage?
So from our perspective at the Billions Network, we enable user identity verification and verifiable data at scale, no matter what backend system you're using.
Mm,
So for our partners in the government space, such as the Ministry of Labor in India, where we're working to prevent fraud in the social security system, there's really no, on-chain payment infrastructure or blockchain-based, tech stack that is more important than or that supersedes the existing national identity infrastructure that they already have in place. In India, it's an identity system called Aadhaar, sort of like their national ID cards. Whereas, there are some partners such as our colleagues in the crypto ecosystem that are facilitating payments in stable coins or that are facilitating transactions or user interactions that happen with the decentralized backend. And so our tech stack is able to kind of serve them, with equivalent capabilities and value, just slightly different use cases depending on what's pressing there. However, I will say that the obvious, glaring need for verifiable data and identity in crypto, I think has finally come to light, meaning that if the only thing I know about you is your, let's say, Ethereum public key, right? Then the only games that we can play together are treasury allocation. We can, send tokens around together, or we can do over collateralized lending between one another. But for any other in trust minimized interaction between our sets of keys. If we want to schedule a phone call, if we want to build a product, if we want to be able to coordinate, podcasts like we have now, we want to be able to make decisions together jointly. We need to know more about one another than how many tokens are mapped to those keys. What time zone am I in? What language do you speak? What time are you available? What expertise do you have? What qualifications do you have? And so for those sort of higher level coordination games, where we want to incorporate data from the world at large and its many sources, including roots of trust like government entities, then infrastructure such as what we build at Billions Network is essential.
Right. I trust you and your expertise. Can you help me and Tony launch a meme coin?
Oh my gosh. I can direct you to the resources to be able to do that. If you guys want to launch a meme coin, I can learn along with you. My focus is really in tokenized networks that leverage those tokens for utility and security, but we are also in the business of having fun and exploring. So maybe for our next episode, the Chads launch a meme coin. Give me a moment to research and we can do it live.
I think Tony and I don't really want to document what we're doing with this too publicly, but
we just want to be really, really rich. So wherever that bar is, let's just set it.
Well, let's say one way to explore that is we'll put it in the token gated after show content.
Yes.
So you guys want to watch the boys launch a meme coin, we can
brilliant.
paywall that content.
It's a brilliant
it'll be $1,000 to see if what the after show content is for that.
Exceptional. Well, it's always, of course, free to learn with us at Billions Network. So if you are interested in building verifiable data, you can come visit us at billions.network to get started. And if you are interested in launching meme coins, we actually do work with a number of teams who have infrastructure to launch tokens. So we can probably help you with that too.
Amazing.
That's amazing. And in all seriousness, I mean, it's really fascinating what Privado and the Billions Network is doing. This is like clearly something we're going to be talking about a lot, especially the agentic stuff. So I'm glad we got someone who's obviously such an expert on the show to help explain this stuff to us. So thank you very much for coming on. It was a great chat.
That was an absolute treat. Thank you guys so much. If you're interested in delving into more about agentic workflows or what it means to scale client-side data and make identity sexy for everyone, I'm always happy to come back for a future episode.
All right, that'd be great.
Thanks,
Evan.
Thanks, guys.